Hey watercolor wizards, Hajra here. Today I'm sharing my last Easter themed piece for the year. Thought it would be nice if I made two bunnies facing each other and then also decorated the eggs. Then it would be like an Easter piece, but also an Alice in Wonderland, labyrinthy, Jim Henson style piece too. So the result was these really cool bunny sentries. A live stream on Twitch and you can still see it there, but I didn't really like the video recording quality of it. I also filmed the second side off of the stream and am now posting that as a YouTube video. So this initial 30 seconds is a speed through recap of the Twitch live stream before I go on to the second half. So for the whole piece, I used hot press Arches or Arche watercolor paper. For this piece, I used a triad that mixed into pastel-y Easter colors, and I'm going to show which pans and what colors I use right now. I used my Gansai Tambi watercolor paints for the first time. It's actually almost the first time. I also used them for my Lady Amalthea from the last unicorn piece, but it was a really small piece. I used Fabriano hot press watercolor paper for the Lady Amalthea piece, and blending and lifting was harder. Arches or Arche definitely works better for blending and lifting. Before I moved on to the second bunny, I finished up the flowers on the first bunny. It was just implying simple designs on a porcelain jug, so I only needed to do a few transparent streaks of color here and there. Same thing for the leaves. And I'll show the process for one of these eggs. Notice how I leave a highlight down the center of the stripes to make it look like the egg is a little bit shiny, and also how I correct the bottom edge of the striped egg. Sometimes the paint will settle in an inaccurate hard edge somewhere, and it just has to be lifted off when it's dry so the drawing looks right again. You can keep doing this here and there and correcting, but it all depends on how far you want to take the piece. I saw a few other areas here where I could have fixed things, but I decided to leave them because I didn't think this piece was that serious. I did the base of the jug in a pale blue wash. Makes it pop a bit more. The pans for the Gansai Tambi paints are about half full, so they seem like they're bigger pans than the traditional half or full pans that you can get from more expensive watercolors, but there's really not that much more paint there. The colors also seem to fade as they dry, so I found that I needed more layers of paint than I typically do for some of my more expensive paint, so it did end up being more work than if you use something like Schmincke or Sennelier paints. My expensive paints, which are the Sennelier, Schmincke, or even the Cretacolor watercolor crayons, or my watercolor pencils from Faber-Castell, they all seem to be more vibrant and fade less. But all watercolors do fade a little, so even your expensive watercolors will fade a little. It's just that it seemed like these colors seem to fade more and need more layers than the more expensive paints I already own. It also seemed like they re-wetted slower than some of my more expensive paints, so they seemed a little bit less sort of soft and creamy. I really like how the milky tea chai color of the bunny's fur makes it warmer overall too, instead of just going with a white rabbit look. I just used the diluted cool red from my triad in the mouth area. To read it is a nice pink around his little nose and mouth. And the eye is just a purpley brown mix of the triad dropped in with a 20/0 spotter brush. These Gansai Tambi paints are supposed to be a little bit more opaque, even though they are watercolor pans, because they're supposedly more like traditional Japanese style opaque watercolors. So in a future video, I will try and use them like gouache and see if they work like that. I painted in the checks in a slight gradient, meaning that I put down a dark edge, whether it was the top edge, the bottom edge, right or left, and then I blended that edge out with a damp brush. This makes more value contrast because it gives you a light side and a dark side, and it makes the checks more interesting than if you just paint them in very flat and even. I've also discussed color harmony many times, and this is achieved using a limited number of colors, but also by assessing balance of the colors throughout your piece. The green checks bookend and balance each other on opposite sides of the piece as a pattern and also in their green color. This piece is a good example of actually tidy color balancing. You see it in the checks, the flowers on the picture, and also on the chai color fur of the rabbit. So here are both of my rabbit sentries all done. They look pretty serious about guarding those eggs. I found the colors and patterns and composition of this piece really satisfying. Really hope you found this video interesting, and until next time, wishing you magical painting adventures.